Meta released their new AI chatbot into the wild. This is going to be the main news of this week's episode of Tech Pizza, but we're also going to talk about a bunch of other very interesting things. First of all, Amazon bought iRobot, the company behind Roomba. You know this vacuum cleaner that walks around the house? That one. So we're going to try to understand why. We're also going to talk about some problems with Solana, one of the top 10 blockchain platforms. And last but not least, some news about the crypto industry that seems to be growing up and becoming adult. So enjoy the video. If you're not subscribed to the newsletter, go on tech.pizza, put your email there, and you're going to receive every week a curated email with all the most important stuff that is happening in tech. Now let's get started. Meta released their new AI chatbot into the wild. This basically means that anybody is going to be able to talk and to have a conversation with this new AI chatbot, which is still a piece of research. Now, the last time that this happened is from 2016, when Microsoft launched Tai, a chatbot that was able to learn from what people were telling it on Twitter. And it became a neo-Nazi, racist AI within the first 24 hours. Then Microsoft had to pull this technology out from Twitter. But let's understand why this is different. First of all, why is Meta doing this? It's doing it because these large language models that are capable of generating text have problems. They're biased, often they are a bit racist, often they have a little bit misogynistic, and sometimes they also spit out infactual truth. And so why do you release something like this into the wild? Well, exactly because of this problem. Think about this. So far, the approach of AI research labs to try to fix these issues is to test them within the lab. But we all know that AI research is not the most inclusive field in the world. Most people in big tech are white and they're guys. So it's impossible, basically, for them to capture all the different diverse conversations that you can have in the real world. And so what Meta decided to do is to release it in the real world for people to try it out. And people are capable of giving feedback. For each answer that you get from the chatbot, you have two buttons where you can say if this was a good answer or a bad answer, and provide additional feedback as well by saying, for instance, if that answer was racist, if it was, let's say, insensitive, non-factual, etc., etc., etc. All this data is going to be used to improve the model. Let's talk about the model now, because there's some pretty important breakthroughs in the model as well. The first thing that is very interesting about this model is that it's not static as a lot of the latest language models. What does it mean? If you take GPT-3, like the OpenAI model, that model has learned from basically the entire internet. Then you can fine-tune it, which means that you can give it pieces of text to learn something more specific, but that's basically it. This model instead can query the internet while talking to it. So if you ask it an information the model doesn't know, because maybe it's something new, you're asking something about the news, the model can actually go on the internet, read what's going on, interpret it, and give you an answer that is factual. That's the first thing that is interesting. The second thing that is interesting is a new architecture called Director. There's basically constantly two AI models that are working together. One is the traditional, let's say, language model that is spitting out answers to whatever question you have. The other one is the Director part. It's basically looking at the answers produced by the other language model thingy, and it's trying to evaluate these things to understand whether these answers are factual, whether these answers are biased, etc., etc. And if they are, so if these two models can't agree, well, then it doesn't spit out the answer. It keeps doing it until it finds an answer that is okay. This also means that the kind of experiment that Meta is doing is perfect for this new architecture, because all these scores and all these votes that people are going to do are going to be used to train the director and become always better and better. This model seems to be much better than its predecessors. It's 46% less prone to spit out misinformation, and the number of cases where the model was racist or biased, whatever, is just 0.16%. And we hope that this experiment is going to bring it to zero. So let's see how it goes, but good job to Meta for having this very open approach to trying to get feedback from people. The last thing that I want to tell you about this is that Meta also has an intention to release the outputs of this experiment so that they are not the only ones that can learn from it. The overall AI community can learn from their experiment as well. This is really cool and part of yet another effort from Meta to try to make their work more accessible to everybody and benefit the whole research community. Good job. Amazon is on a buying spree. Just 2 weeks ago, we talked about their $3.9 billion acquisition of One Medical, and this week they bought iRobot, the company behind Roomba, the cool vacuum cleaner that walks around your house. And they paid $1.7 billion for this company, which is pretty crazy. Now, why did they do this? First of all, this is not the first time that Amazon tries to get their feet into the robotic business. They launched last year a robot called Astro for $14.99, a pretty expensive robot that was basically Alexa on wheels. It was a little robot that could walk around your house and you could talk to exactly like you do with Alexa, and you could do, the classic Alexa things, basically. Some other features that it had was that it was basically patrolling your house to find potential intruders or potential problems while you're not there, which is interesting because that's another business that Amazon has been pushing a lot. Home security and home automation in general, with their acquisition of Ring and their smart doorbells, smart cameras, etc., etc., etc. Some people think that this acquisition can be actually dangerous because if you think about it, Roomba is pretty strong in having this amazing technology that can map your entire house, and they think that Amazon is going to have this data to try to sell you stuff, basically. Or maybe they're going to know, let's say, that there are toys on the floor and therefore they're going to try to sell you toys. I honestly don't know if that's the case. It seems like Amazon is just trying to expand in other product verticals: home automation, home security, healthcare, as we saw a couple of weeks ago. So to me, it just makes sense, especially considering that they had a pretty good deal. They paid $61 per share, but the company was trading at more than $120 per share just a year ago. So sounds like they had a really good deal because this company basically had problems in revenues. Lately, it seemed like they were selling less than usual. And so, pretty good deal. I guess good jobs, Amazon. And let's really keep track of what they're going to do with this data, because I get it. That's something that should scare people off. Solana is in trouble. It's one of the top 10 cryptocurrencies in the world by market capitalization. And the last week, there's been a couple of things that were not really cool. First of all, there's been a hack that basically people saw money getting drained out of their hot wallets. A hot wallet is a wallet that is connected to the internet using different kinds of services. In the case of Solana, it looks like these hot wallets were exactly the problem that was exploited by hackers. More than 9,000 wallets were drained, making people lose a total of $4 million. The second problem that happened with Solana is about a DeFi project called Saber. This was a major DeFi protocol that seemed to have been built by 11 developers and seemed to have $7.5 billion in locked total value, which basically means money that people stored in the ecosystem. People found out that it was not 11 developers. It was two brothers. They had fake accounts on Twitter and GitHub, etc., to try to look like there were more people, basically. And they also seemingly found tricks to basically count the same dollar twice. So also the total money that were deposited into these DeFi projects seemed to be much less. A few things about these two different news. Let's remember, crypto is very, very, very new. This means that there's a lot of different bugs and hacks and potential exploits that are still out there and people may find. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence. Make sure that you are being cautious. Use cold wallets, which basically means this kind of USB sticks where you can put your keys so that nobody can access your crypto, unless they steal your key, obviously. And just do your own research. But also, let's talk about anonymity for 1 second. Anonymity has always been a big thing in crypto. Satoshi Nakamoto, the original founder of Bitcoin, we still don't know who that guy is. And that's amazing because he allows people to, protect their privacy and not put their face under a project. But he also is often exploited to scam people, to make projects look bigger than they actually are, like in this case, or to just steal people's money and then fuck off. And that's not great, right? Crypto is growing up, is becoming an adult. What do I mean by this? Well, let's look into two news of the past week. The first one is that Coinbase partnered up with BlackRock. BlackRock is the world's biggest asset manager with $8.5 trillion in assets under management. Pretty crazy, right? So basically, BlackRock is going to be able to use Coinbase Prime, which is Coinbase platform for institutional investors, so that BlackRock can use this tool to expose basically all their clients to the crypto industry, which is great because it's going to bring more people into crypto. The second news that I want to talk about is the fact that Tornado Cash has been banned. Now, what the hell is Tornado Cash? Tornado Cash is a tool to make crypto more anonymous. So you know that every transaction is basically public on the blockchain. Anybody can see what happened to some specific money. Now, imagine that everybody can see what happened to your cash that you have in your wallet. And imagine that there's a giant pool where everybody throws their cash in. Somebody gives a giant mix, and then you can go back with a new wallet that is virgin, nobody has touched it, and bring this cash back slowly into your wallet. This way, basically, you're just covering your trace and nobody's gonna know where the money that went into your new wallet came from. Obviously, the idea behind this is to protect privacy, but a lot of people used it for scams, obviously, to hide their identity after they stole money. It was allegedly used by the North Korean hacker group that stole $600 million from Axie Infinity. And in total, it seems like more than $7 billion have been used to be laundered by Tornado Cash. Now, the American Office of Foreign Asset Control declared that the service is illegal and everybody who interacts with it is committing a fraud. It's just doing something illegal, right? The problem is that this tool is decentralized, so there's no turn off button. But there are still other problems. So the founder of this tool has been kicked out of GitHub, which is basically the tool the software developers use to store their code. So it's been literally being cut off from the ecosystem. Now, let's look at these two news, BlackRock partnering with Coinbase and Tornado Cash being banned, and let's try to understand why I'm saying that crypto is becoming more adult. Because, well, if you want institutional investors to use crypto, well, you gotta have rules. And so all this anarchy that was philosophically interesting, but actually really dangerous practically, it's not really great. And so the more the government starts regulating it and kind of cutting out all these bad parties, the more we're gonna have institutional investors coming in, but also we're gonna lose a little bit of the ethos of crypto, that almost anarchist, free, private vibe that the crypto maximalists really like. I'm curious to know what you think about this. Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching this episode of Tech Pizza. If you don't know what Tech Pizza is, it's a fun, I think, project that I have where basically I talk about all the most important things that happen in tech in these videos on a podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you listen to your podcast, and via email. If you've watched this already, thank you for coming back. But if this is the first time that you come across this format, go on tech.pizza, put your email there, and every week I'm gonna see you in your inbox with some fresh, interesting tech news. Ciao.